Ladies and gentlemen, Lumberjack Nation, welcome back. It's been what, 24 hours since I've seen you last? And that's okay. Hey, it is officially football season. I am stoked to finally be able to say that. It is the preview of week 1. NAU is going to in-state Arizona State, the home of the Sun Devils, to hopefully do what they did last season and knock off the second Pac 12 team in just 2 years. So, without further ado, I have Mr. Brad Denny. He is the host of the Speak of the Devils podcast and also works at AZ Family 3 and CBS 5.
Yeah.
All righty. Brad, thank you for coming on. How are you?
I'm doing well. How are you? Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Of course. I am doing well. You've been doing all these shows from Mississippi is kind of different. But hey, I love NAU. I have been a follower of NAU for many, many years. But I think you've had the Speak of the Devils podcast a little bit longer than I've had my show. How long have you been reporting and covering Arizona State for?
This is going to be my 13th season covering the team, and this is going to be the Speak of the Devils podcast 12th season. We just celebrated our 11th birthday last week, and it's incredible to think. It just seems like time flies so fast, and yet so much has happened. So it's been a privilege and a pleasure to cover college football.
Definitely. Question for you. There's been, fall camp has been going like crazy. Everyone's getting ready for the season. Since you've been reporting for Arizona State for a while, what have you seen really going into the season that you expect Arizona State's going to do?
Yeah, that's kind of the big unknown because just the national narrative has just been so overwhelmingly negative about this program. And, for a lot of parts, for good reason. Obviously, the NCAA investigation is still a black cloud that is looming over this program. Is really kind of devastated any recruiting outside of the transfer portal. Of course, there's been so many departures through the transfer portal since the end of last season. But I do think that a lot of folks nationally, perhaps even regionally, are kind of overlooking the fact that ASU brought in a lot of quality players through the portal and also had some key guys stay, even a couple that went in the portal and decided to come back. But I think the real narrative that's really come out and jumped out to me during the course of fall camp has just been the mentality of this team. There's been a real kind of us against the world, circle the wagons mentality. And not to besmirch any of the players that have left, but some of those were not maybe the best in locker room presences to say. Maybe last year when things got a little bit rough, perhaps, those aren't necessarily the kind of leaders you wanted in there navigating those rough waters. That I get a different sense that the mentality is a lot different. Now, will that be enough to offset the fact that this is not nearly as talented a team as last year? We'll see, but I think that the real thing, as mentioned, the thing that jumped out to me is that this is a much healthier mental team. The vibe has been much better. I think they're more focused on football. I think they have a real good group of leaders. Another thing that really jumped out is it's coach-led, but coach-fed, player-led has been kind of the motto. And you really see kind of a key group of players in this team really kind of establish control. And I think that might pay dividends for ASU going over the course of the season, especially after kind of a real tough first half of the schedule when things might get a little rough. But I do think that, it'll be interesting to see just how much a better mental state and maybe they can avoid some of the self-inflicted errors that really kind of derailed last year can help maybe mitigate some of those talent departures.
Got it. I have our second guest here that has joined us. He is Mr. Dave Zorn, or also one of the Mr. NAUs himself from KAFF FM out there in Flagstaff. Dave, welcome to the show.
What's up, fellas? How are we doing?
Hey, Dave.
How's it going, Brad?
We're doing well. Dave, thank you so much for coming to the show. The reason why I brought you in is, well, you're up there. NAU really well. I kind of go with the same kind of question as I just asked Brad. With the fall camp, kind of finishing up and getting ready for the season, what is NAU kind of really looking at going into the season, and how do you think they're preparing, and how do you think they're going to be?
Oh, I think it's been a great off season. And by the way, you see the Pat Tillman. That's like my prized possession, the Pat Tillman. Let me get out of the way.
There you go.
Very nice.
Yep.
Very nice.
Yep. I got it years ago before. It's probably 15 years ago. But I'm an ASU fan at heart. Been one for years, but I'm an NAU grad and I'm on the broadcast team. And since I've been up here, I'm kind of switched to the good side at this point. But I hate this game. But anyway, as far as NAU goes, yeah, I liked what I see in the offseason. The thing with NAU last year is youth. They had a lot of youth. They played a lot of freshmen and sophomores. A lot of true freshmen played last year. It's been a rebuilding process for Coach Ball up here since he took the job. He wanted to put his team together. He wanted to get bigger guys. I mean, there was a time for a long time that NAU didn't have big defensive linemen at all, and that was a big thing for him. He wanted to get big butts on that defensive line, and he went out and I think down the defensive line, I think is the strongest position on this defense right now. As for offense, I think he's got a lot. He definitely has a lot of athletes on the offensive side of the ball. Skill position guys, wide receiver, running back, very, very deep. Quarterback looks good with RJ. Obviously, the Casa Grande kids look really, really good in spring ball. He got up here early, and in fall camp, and they've got a couple, other kids that can chuck the ball around. Offensive line has been weird because they've had some injuries during spring and fall camp. They're trying to finally get, cohesive unit together to kind of, build some depth and stop being hurt. But I think they finally got it now, and I think offensively they're going to be in good shape. And I like the thoughts of them coming into this game. I mean, it was a little different last year. I mean, granted, we all love the fact they beat U of A. Brad and I both for different reasons, but any win over U of A is a good thing. But it wasn't the best team that went to Tucson that won the game. I mean, NAU has brought some more talented teams into Tucson. They brought a talented team to ASU the last time they went down there with Case's first year, and I think it was Emmanuel's sophomore year. And I joked with Coach Ball this week. Last time NAU played ASU in Tempe, he was a defensive coordinator for ASU, or a co-defensive coordinator. So he and I have had a little fun this week on that too. But I think there's a very talented NAU team coming into Tempe, and I caught a little bit of what Brad was saying as far as what the mentality was for ASU. That's good to hear, especially since all the crap that's gone on in that program in the last 6 to 9 months. That's good to see that at least the team has figured out how to rally. And NAU's had to do the same. They installed a new leadership committee, formed groups, tribes they call them. So that needed to be done in NAU as well, and I think they're in better shape for it.
Dave, one of the questions, or one of the things that you just kind of talked about is Chris Ball, previous stint at ASU. This is the first time that he is going to ASU since then. What are some of the emotions kind of going through his mind that he gets to step foot on the field at ASU with his own team to face them?
I think this is going to be a very big emotional game for Coach Ball. I mean, he and I have talked in the past off the record on a lot of things that happened at ASU, and but I know that he loved being there. We revisited a little bit this week. He smiled every time I mentioned the fact that he's going back. On our media call on when was it, Friday, I guess it was, Tim Healy showed up and Tim almost made him cry. So the emotions are there for Coach Ball going back to ASU. I think he loved the kids that he coached in that program. I know he loved a lot of the alumni, a lot of the fans that were there too. And it's just a situation that when it fell apart in a lot of different directions. But he ended up in a great gig in Memphis, and now he's back at NAU for year 4. And I think there's down deep he's going to enjoy that trip back to Tempe. Even win or lose, he's going to enjoy being back there and seeing a lot of the same people again.
Good. Brad, I want to quickly kind of touch on the subject. A couple months back, all through social media, there was a lot of talk about the investigation going on at ASU, especially with football, that Herm Edwards is on the hot seat. What's going on in that? Is there any real truth to any of it, or is it just a bunch of hogwash?
I think a lot of folks just see the fact that ASU has that NCAA cloud hanging over the program, and coming off of a season in which they, historically 8 wins in Tempe is pretty good, but in the context of last year and everything it should have been, and the way that the season kind of transpired, there's a lot of frustration there. But the fact remains that as long as Ray Anderson is the AD at the head of the athletic department, I mean, he's not going to let go of his buddy Herm Edwards. I think the plan right now is, barring any unforeseen notice of allegations coming out with any kind of real hard severe allegations put forth, that the plan is just to get through this 2022 season and then kind of reevaluate things there. I think that at the end of the year, that's when you might see some sort of move. But I don't think that any of the traditional hot seat talk of, like, if they start say 1-3 or 2-5 or something about nature, I don't see a mid-season move of that. Barring any unforeseen NCAA involvement. From what I've heard, the NCAA still not gotten around to the questioning of any kind of the staffers in Tempe. So I think any kind of resolution on that front is a ways off. And I mean, just look down at the U of A basketball, and just, their investigation is a years long process. And we've just basically crossed the kind of 1 year mark in Tempe. So just this glacial pace that the NCAA operates on could, push this into the off season, which is when I think you might see something happen, but not in that traditional hot seat sense.
Right. Now, y'all lost a lot of players to the pool, like 20, 25, something like that. That's what I keep hearing. How does that affect this year? Because I know you also lost your quarterback, right?
Yeah, 3-year starter Jayden Daniels. He's now battling to be QB1 down for Louisiana State. There was a number of key players that departed through the portal. 5 scholarship wide receivers were gone. Jermaine Lole, their most talented defensive lineman, he missed all of last year with an injury. He participated in spring ball, was looking to be a real cornerstone of this defense. A defense that was really good last year, led the Pac-12 in scoring defense, and he's going to just adding him to that fold was looked at to be a good move. But he's now at Louisville. Eric Gentry, a freshman All-American who really kind of stepped in and played some key snaps, was looking to be a foundational piece of that second level of the defense. He got a big NIL deal, and he's now a Trojan out at USC, and he'll be facing off against ASU in October. So there's a number of really key departures. But one thing that I think gets overlooked in the overarching narrative is that ASU did go to the portal and have success in replacing a lot of those. Now, granted, I think the net loss, the net talent disparity is against ASU's favor in that respect. But I mean, when you have Nesta Jade Silvera helping to plug that middle of that defensive line coming over from Miami, and you talk to anybody around that program, they just rave about what he was able to do. He's a guy who has all ACC honors in his on his resume. Valade, the running back from Wyoming, has over 3,300 career rushing yards. He's demonstrated success. They brought in a number of quality offensive linemen that few of them probably going to be starting on Thursday night. They've bolstered their wide receiver room, tight ends as well. They have a defensive back that was the reigning JUCO Defensive National Player of the Year, and Ro Torrance. He's in line to start as well on Thursday. So they have been able to plug some of those holes that were caused by some of those portal departures, but it's definitely created a situation that kind of has built in a lot of fan unrest, because with that investigation cloud still hanging over, ASU's high school recruiting has really kind of just ground to a halt. So they've really been very proactive out of necessity, really, through the portal. And they've made some quality additions. And, once these games get going, we'll see how quality they are.
Got it. Dave, who are some of the freshmen that are coming in NAU? I know last year, RJ Martinez won the Big Sky Freshman of the Year. We have this year, Angel Flores has come in from Casa Grande. Who are some of the players we should really watch? Not just the year, but definitely this first game.
Well, I think that as far as true freshmen, I think it's a little bit of an unknown. I mean, I think last year we saw a lot of true freshmen play. They got quality minutes. Not only that, the short spring season that they had, last year. That was great. I mean, most teams go through that your normal spring practices. Having a 5-game schedule in the Big Sky during the spring was awesome, and it really got a lot of these guys a lot of valuable playing time against Eastern Washington and Montana and some of the upper echelon teams in the Big Sky. I don't think we're going to see a lot of true freshmen play this time because this team is still pretty green and still really young, and those guys got a lot of playing time in the beginning, or most of the year last year. I do like Kevin Daniels is a guy who I saw in high school play. We actually broadcasted a couple of his games when they played Flagstaff, and it's a kid I've known since he was a junior, and to see him develop into what he is now and put on the body weight, the good body weight that he has. This guy's a wrecking ball. I mean, he's 210 pounds, 6 foot, 6'1", and just runs through people. I mean, and his progressions, now he's just a sophomore. I mean, it's just phenomenal. And they got a guy in Drayson Hall who's probably the oldest senior ever to play college football at this point. He's like 28, but he holds all the Higley High School's records. And Coach Ball loves that guy. He's probably going to be a third down back who can hit the hole and get you that 1 or 2 yards, or he can swing out and catch a pass and get you a couple yards on that end. Then you got a guy like Big George, again, 6'1", 220. That's another wrecking ball type running back. And I think, going into the Big Sky season, I think NAU's offense is built for a lot of success. Now, what's funny about this game with ASU, this is kind of a fan game. And like I said, I hate this game because, I grew up an ASU fan, so I can't stand it. And but this is, if NAU happens to win this, I mean, kind of claim a state championship in a way. It's fictitious, yeah, but hey, what the heck? Could ASU go and blow NAU out? Sure. I mean, they got the talent, especially the incoming guys. But if this game's close in the third quarter, if it comes down to, smash mouth football, a turnover here, just like U of A last year. I mean, U of A got off to a quick start in the first quarter and just stopped. And NAU took advantage of everything that was thrown their way by the Wildcats. So again, the team is super young, but there are some veterans on there, but they're very, very talented. And most of those guys are Arizona guys where, I know Coach Edwards hasn't really recruited Arizona that well. ASU fans know that. U of A with their coaching changes, they haven't really recruited Arizona either. NAU's been the benefit of a lot of that. Guys that maybe would have got a sniff from ASU or U of A, almost fails to bring him in as a preferred walk-on. Our scholarship guys here, there's a number of kids that had 3, 4, 5 FBS offers, granted lower level like New Mexico, that kind of thing. Those guys are here, and they're those quality players. Hendricks Johnson's one guy I always point out when it comes to that. Coleman Owens, a guy who walked on, and now he's a scholarship, and he's the number 2 receiver, arguably maybe the best receiver they have. And he's a kid from down the valley. So, youth is still present on this Lumberjack team, but it's youth, but they're experienced. And that's the biggest difference between last year and this year.
Got it. Brad, kind of same question to you. Who are some of the players that we should watch for?
I think the big first player to watch is going to be Emory Jones, the quarterback. He's coming over from Florida. He's a starter in the SEC last year, and it was a difficult year for the Gators in general. And I think that a lot of fan base was really harping for the guy behind him. But he put up some good numbers, led the team in rushing. But he's really been the beneficiary, kind of, I think, of a change of scenery. He was named recently a team captain, kind of impressive for a guy who just arrived over the summer. But it'll be interesting to see how he handles the offense because overall, I think ASU's defense returns a lot. There's a lot of continuity, even though there's a new defensive coordinator, and Donnie Henderson. He's a guy who just has been in the program for a couple of years. So there's a lot of continuity on the defense side. The big questions are going to be on offense, and I think the top one is whether Emory Jones is going to be able to kind of be that trigger man for this Sun Devil offense. It's a new offensive coordinator and Glenn Thomas coming over from UNLV, and so there's a lot of questions at wide receiver as well because the passing game for ASU was really bad last year, especially the back half of the year. So I think the run game is going to be pretty good with as I mentioned, X Valaday and Daniel Ngata are returning as well. They should have a good presence on the ground, but the passing attack I think is going to be the real differentiator. Whether this is a season where ASU really struggles to get bowl eligible, or maybe they can make a run and surprise a little bit. And I think it really kind of starts at, with Emory Jones. Messiah Swinson it was a transfer from Missouri. I think he was a guy to also watch for. Jones and Swinson had a real good rapport going all fall camp long. Swinson's 6'7", about 250. So he's obviously a massive frame there. Jalen Conyer is an Oklahoma transfer, came over last year and played a little bit. So that the ASU is going to run a lot of 12 personnel, and those two tight ends I think are going to be two people to really watch for on the offensive side of the ball. Switching over to defense, I think one of the big matchups I'm really most eager to see, and as Dave mentioned, you got two very good wide receivers for NAU. You have an ASU secondary that lost all four starters a year ago. They do have some experience and a lot of young talent, but a lot of that's really relatively inexperienced. So I want to see, whether Roe Torrance, Ed Woods is going to be making his first career start as well, Mason Williams. They have a couple key injuries amongst their cornerbacks. So it would be interesting to see how successful NAU is at passing the ball downfield. Another name to watch was also Connor Soley. He'll be making his first career start at linebacker. His older brother Kyle is the team starter at middle linebacker, team captain. So it'll be pretty cool. The two kids from Scottsdale, Saguaro High School, they'll be making the start together. I had a chance to sit down with them for a podcast a while back, and they're two guys that ASU has been running through their veins since they were little kids, and to see them now starting side by side in Sun Devil Stadium is going to be pretty special. But Connor, on his own right, I think is a really interesting player, a lot of high upside. He's been in the program for a couple of years. I think he's going to be one to watch and a potential star in the making in the Pac-12.
All right, perfect. Now, I know that if I'm right, maybe I'm wrong, but ASU just got a new offensive coordinator, right?
Yep, Glenn Thomas.
So, how does that help or not help ASU, and how long has he been there so they can read and get to know the playbook?
Yeah, he actually joined the program early in the offseason. Zach Hill, the former offensive coordinator the last couple of years, he resigned after he was also implicated in some of the NCAA stuff. So Herm Edwards made a quick move. So Glenn Thomas most recently came over, as mentioned, from UNLV. Also has a time at Baylor, but also perhaps the most appealing part of his resume was when he was working with the Atlanta Falcons and helped develop Matt Ryan early in Ryan's career. And that was the big question that ASU really wasn't unable to answer the last couple of years, especially last year. As I mentioned, the passing game was just flat out bad. Jayden Daniels, after his electric opening, freshman year in 2019, really kind of plateaued. And last year, I thought just flat out regressed. So with a guy with a pedigree that has been known to develop quarterbacks like Thomas, and with a wide open quarterback competition, Trenton Bourguet and Paul Tyson were the two guys in spring ball that worked with Thomas and trying to learn that system and win that job. Ultimately, they made the decision that neither of those guys necessarily were what they wanted to go with. So they brought in Jones. He won that job. It was pretty apparent that he was going to be a cut above those guys. So it'll be interesting to see just how the offense runs with so many new pieces, as mentioned, with Thomas as the play caller and Jones, the key running back, a couple of different pieces on the offensive line. One thing that has jumped out to me, though, comparing Thomas to Zach Hill last year, is Hill was kind of a more, bend the players to fit the system, whereas Thomas is, in fact, trying to mold his system around what his players do best, which I think is a better approach. In fact, they've even brought over some plays that Jones really liked using from the Florida Gator playbook, and have installed those here for the Sun Devils. So I think that's probably a better recipe for success. And of course, there's a lot of reports that perhaps Jayden Daniels and Zach Hill did not get along well. So it's not a good sign for your offense when your quarterback and OC don't get along too well. So far, at least to this point, the relationship between Thomas and Jones and the rest of the offense seems to be pretty healthy.
Got it. Let's talk keys to the game real quick. Now, this is going to be a fun one to watch, just depending on how NAU is going to be and how ASU may or may not be. So, Dave, what does NAU have to do to be able to go into Tempe and pull up the upset win?
I'll give you three things. A, don't turn the ball over. That's obvious. That's the softball down the middle of the plate kind of thing. Mm-hmm. Can't turn the ball over, especially against a team with speed, and crowd's going to be amped up a little bit on a Thursday night, and just your surroundings. Got to hang on to the football. Offensive line's got to block. Got to give RJ some time to make some moves, and I think they did a great job of that with a younger, less experienced line last year in Tucson. When RJ came in, it was a whole different team in the second quarter on. Now, I mean, RJ's not going to surprise ASU this year. They'll be ready for him. But, if they give him an extra second or two, he can escape, roll out, try to find those receivers, and move the ball down the field. The defensive-wise, they've got to tackle, keep the play in front of them, eliminate big plays if they can. I think with the big defensive line they have, and quite athletic actually, I think they can try to slow ASU down if they can. Linebacker's always been a position, especially since after last year, due to graduation, has been a question mark for me. Those guys have got to play, out of this world, especially against the run. DBs are kind of young, but they got a couple of transfers in from D1 schools that are probably going to start. Morgan Vest is one of my favorite NAU players ever. I was on an interview earlier this week with somebody else from ASU, and they asked me, is there a Sun Devil I can compare him to? I go, yeah, he's a mixture of Adam Archuleta and Mike Nixon. And that, yeah. See, Brad's reaction should probably tell you that. And he's a small guy, hits hard, great tackler, great leader. And I'm sure he'll be ready to go, and he'll have the game of his life as well. So those are my keys for NAU to win. I mean, again, it circles all around turnovers. They turn the ball over 4 or 5 times. It's going to be an early night.
Right. Plus, they got to get, in my mind, they have to make sure that the defense gets the ball.
Well, yeah. I mean, defense played a great game in Tucson last year. Did a great job against the run. Put some pressure on one of the 3 quarterbacks I think U of A ran at him last year. So they got to be mindful and blitz when it's smart to do so. They've got obviously a veteran defensive coordinator in Jerry, who's done a great job with defense. So I'm not worried, or maybe doing things at wrong times. I mean, the veteran leadership there and the veteran coach, is going to do well. And I think, honestly, the defense had a great fall camp. I mean, they were all over the offense the entire camp and very loud about it, very animated. So there's a lot of energy with this defense this year. And I like this. I love this. Love seeing that during fall camp, especially in the one scrimmage I went to. It was very defensive controlled and very defensive oriented, which caught the offense off guard. So I still think the offense is the best part of NAU's team, but the defense can be very opportunistic if allowed to be.
Okay.
That's the best way to put it.
All right. Brad, keys to the game.
I asked ASU defensive tackle Omar Norman Lott, what do they do? Are they aware of the kind of upset potential, knowing that the precedent is there, that this is a quality NAU team that went down there to Tucson and beat the Wildcats last year, and he really said that that was something that kind of put ASU on notice, and that that their game plan is just to really kind of come out early, dominate, and just, as he said, don't give them hope, because these kind of upsets, all we just see where perhaps the heavy favorite makes some mistakes. There's a couple of turnovers there that all of a sudden it's a little closer at halftime. Then all of a sudden you're in that third quarter, and that underdog just keeps not going away. So for ASU, I think they just really have to come out there and really kind of set the tone a little early. I think ASU's defense is going to be pretty good in this game. Although I mentioned earlier, I think it'd be real interesting to see how this new look secondary handles the passing attack of the Lumberjacks. But my big question is going to be on offense. We talked about Emory Jones, of course, the new offensive scheme, but I think ASU is really going to look to establish the run. Valadez, of course, is demonstrated, quality player at the FBS level. Daniel Ngata has been really good in spurts during his career. Now he's going to be taking on a much larger role. I think they're going to be, this is a game where ASU is going to be looking to run the ball, 50 plus times, and mix in some downfield passing along. Elijah Badger's one of the guys who's emerging at the wide receiver group that really could be, big play threat, as long as, with the tight ends that I mentioned earlier. I just think that ASU needs to avoid being the 2021 version of ASU, where they were one of the most penalized teams in the entire country, and a lot of those penalties were not committed by the young players that you'd expect. I mean, just the procedural penalties, even just the mental errors, were just really what kept ASU at that as an 8-win team instead of perhaps challenging for a double-digit total last year. If they can really just eliminate that, or even just cut those mistakes in half, and just let their talent advantage play out, I think they'll be in fine shape. But that's a big unknown, because that's something they were harping on all last year after some early struggles of just, we'll clean it up, we'll fix these mistakes, and they never did. And a lot of these coaches are back. A lot of these players are back. So a lot of the same characters in the play. We'll see if the end result is any different.
Okay. All right. So the line is about 26.5. Okay. I looked it up today. That's kind of what it's looking like. What do you think the end result will be?
Go ahead, Brad.
I will. On the last night's podcast, we made our predictions, and I think it's going to be a little competitive game early. I do think ASU is going to be able to kind of establish themselves in that first half, and I think by halftime I think they'll have a nice comfortable margin. I do think that the passing attack and the potency of the young talent on NAU will keep this game relatively close, or at least within striking distance in the second half. But I think ASU ultimately pulls away. I foresee something in the range, not necessarily to the Vegas spread, but I think maybe like a 41-17, 41-21 type of score.
Well,
go ahead.
Yeah, it's just I'll pull my Kurt Herbstreit card and say, since I'm on the broadcast, I'm not going to. Granted, it's only the halftime show, but I'll pull the no prediction because again, I hate this game. But I kind of, it can go either one or two ways. I think it could be an ASU blowout. Speed and talent being in the heat obviously is a big deal. Even though NAU's got a ton of kids from the Valley, they've been out of it for probably 3 or 4 months and maybe forgot how it feels like to be in that situation. But, again, turnovers are key. I mean, if NAU can control it a little bit, keep ASU at the mark, if they can, have 3-0 at halftime, maybe 10-7, 17-14, something like that. Or I'm sorry, 3-0 at the end of the first quarter, 17-14 at halftime. That would be good for NAU. That's kind of probably where they want to be. Again, if it's a game in the fourth quarter, all bets are off. I think they can be very good in the passing game for the reasons Brad put out there. I think NAU's receivers are very, very talented. They even mentioned Stacey Chump-Lumsey in any of this. And by the way, he's back and 100% healthy. That just adds another talent, speed, hands guy as the third or fourth receiver on that offense, which is just stupid to think about with his talent. So the trenches are going to have the battle. I'm not going to predict the score, but again, if NAU's in the game going into the fourth quarter, we could be looking for an interesting fourth quarter. But again, ASU could possibly, if things go south on the turnover battle, could run away with it.
Okay,
we'll see. As long as the check clears, that's all we care about anyway.
They're right, exactly. Money. I think there's a song to that. No, anyway. I do not believe ASU has the talent that they've had previous years. Not saying ASU is bad. They are not bad. They are definitely also not an Arizona team. Okay? Yeah. They are better than the Wildcats. I do not believe it's going to be a blowout, though.
Here's my thought, if I can interject real quick. And maybe Brad agrees with this or not. I don't know I'm not sure if a lot of people know what ASU looks like at this point. I mean, granted, the training camp, obviously the players have taken it amongst themselves to, take it as a challenge. But with 43 new guys on the roster, I'm not sure if once they put in the field against another team, they really know what they have at this point. It may be some feeling out processes early in that first and second quarter, or maybe not. But I've always thought that if there's a year that NAU can go down and pull the upset, this might be it because of everything that happened. All the turnaround and guys leaving and guys coming in. If the year that it could happen, this might be it because NAU is definitely a lot more experienced than they were last year, even when they went to Tucson. I know a lot has been made about the Tucson thing. I'll just say this: the Tucson win was important. The fans love it. Obviously, I love it. I haven't heard from many U of A fans in a year. It's been great. But the main thing for NAU was Big Sky. It always is Big Sky. And the fact that the Big Sky didn't go that well for them last year, that's driving them way more than anything else at this point. They want to be ready for Big Sky play. And honestly, next week after ASU, they got to go to Sam Houston, which is building an FBS program 2 years off an FCS national championship. Not the easiest 2 weeks to start for NAU, but I know they're ready to get after it, and we'll see.
Well, Brad, like Mitch was on your show for this preview, and he said the last time NAU had anything to do with the Big Sky Championship was 2003.
Yep.
It is time for NAU to at least get the Big Sky Championship. That is where they need to start. I know they have aspirations. They have wants to go to the national championship. That's great. That's fine and dandy. Start at the Big Sky Championship first. If they can do that, then they are building the blocks to get better and do what they need to do to finally get to the highest level. Gentlemen, thank you for coming on. How do they find you, Brad?
Yeah, you can give me a follow on Twitter at bdenny29. Speak of the Devils, as we're in full swing in season 12 now. So yeah, we are available anywhere you get your podcasts, and subscribe, and we'll have new episodes coming all the time.
Dave, how do all the viewers find you?
Many different ways, but on Twitter it's at Dave Zorn 72. I've had that up for as long as Twitter's been around, I think, at this point. Also, you can follow our sports account for the station. It's at KAFF Sports. We're launching a new video platform Friday night for high school football on the NFHS network. So if you're geeked about high school football, especially up here, we were going to follow both Flag and Coconino. So that'll be fun too. So follow us on that one as well on Twitter.
Perfect. And as always, you can find me on Twitter at NAU Podcast, on Facebook at NAU Podcast, and email me, naupodcast@gmail.com. Hey, also, fans, if you're watching, when you're watching, the first home opener is going to be the September 18th, 17th, 16th? 16th. There you go. 16th. Versus North
Dakota.
Versus North Dakota. I have 4 tickets I am giving away to the lucky fan that's watching. What I need you to do is email me your score prediction of the NAU versus ASU game. Whoever is the closest, I will personally send the tickets to. Good luck. As always root NAU. Until next time, have a great night. Bye-bye.